This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school.
This one's wife. It's comedic genius. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Yes, you haven't realised this, have you? This one's wife. She's created a show that's comedic genius. As you're aware, I watched 2 episodes and dissected them for you last week. After that, I determined that there were much better uses of my time and your time, that I didn't need to subject you to the other 6 episodes, and I certainly was not going to waste my precious time trying to keep myself awake by watching them. It's quite a simple formula. Talentless and charisma-free woman wears various beige and white clothes, rearranges food, invites friends. Friends are there to say how lovely it is and she's wonderful. Repeat. That's it. You don't need to know any more than that. Nevertheless, what has been of interest is finding out what other people think about it. You know that I found it useless and banal, and as I mentioned last week, if I had a soul, it would have fled screaming from my form in order to try and escape the bilge that this one's wife has generated. But I thought I would share with you another perspective to demonstrate that, yet again, the disapproval and ridicule of this television show comes from all quarters. And this time, it comes from Courtney Odell, who's writing for The Federalist. I thought it'd be useful to include that observation. Odell writes, I'm not entirely sure exactly what this one's wife is going for with her new show, With Love, Meghan, but I'm pretty sure few people understand it for the true comedic genius Netflix has graced us with. Styled as part cooking show, part lifestyle show, it's jam-packed, with unoriginal ideas and tips you've definitely seen on Pinterest before. Don't get me wrong. As a living, moving Pinterest board, With Love, Meghan delivers a fabulous aesthetic. But much like a Pinterest board, it actually replicating any bit of said coastal California aesthetic is likely impossible without first tracking down actual recipes, more detailed instructions, and someone to bankroll it all, while keeping those pesky young children and husband away. This one's wife's main theme, with love, forcefully oozes in every scene. This one's wife will show you how much she loves you, like it or not, by creating ham-fisted moments with random factoids she assuredly had her guests fill out on a questionnaire beforehand. As a way to launch the real This One's Wife and celebrate a sort of coming out to her real post-royal life, the series is shot at a rented house, not her sprawling Monte Shitshow estate. None of the recipes she does make her own. They are sourced from Pinterest or blogs whose names we will never know. She changes outfits no less than 20 times in 8 days, sometimes 3 outfits in one morning. We're treated to lots of stories from this one's wife's past and life at home, though most are completely nonsensical and many completely contradictory. In episode 1, we're treated to a glimpse of this one's wife bees and told that women should do scary, important things like keeping bees. In an incredibly relatable, affordable and woman-affirming twist, she's hired a professional, male, natch, beekeeper to do all the actual scary work for her, as she stands at a safe distance, dancing in a beekeeper suit and coos good vibes for good hives to the hive that is totally hers and something she absolutely has seen before in her yard. I truly believe the only time she's been near any part of this process previously is to scoop honeycomb from the trays, as it is the only thing we see her take part in. The episode moves on from bees to what can only be described as the most unhinged one-pot pasta scene I've ever witnessed, and as a food blogger I've seen it all, in which she boils a kettle of water to pour over uncooked spaghetti, diced tomatoes and herbs in a pan, to then boil and thicken. No sautéing for flavour here, just a pile of pasta in its own starchy cream with some quick boiled herbs. We're told some of the ingredients, a smattering of details for others, and some things are left completely to the viewer's interpretation. Most of her recipes are like this. Only the chefs who are invited on each episode seem to have any interest in informing viewers what they are adding into a recipe and why. One chef has her brine chicken in milk, a concept she is completely flummoxed by. As an aside, the viral Jamie Oliver chicken in milk recipe from over a decade ago will make anyone a believer, as is the thought of parboiling chicken before frying. At one point, as this one's wife is prepping breakfast before celebrity Mindy Kaling arrives to host a pretend kids' tea party that is void of any children, she cooks some bacon and talks of how bacon makes all the men in her house come running. She starts shimmying and breaks into a singy-songy voice declaring, "It's not my perfume, my bacon brings all the boys to the yard." This one's wife's jokes that land terribly are only slightly more uncomfortable than watching her using a knife. She somehow always chooses a paring knife and has seemingly never heard of a chef's knife. The fact her fingers remain unscathed after 8 episodes is somewhat of a miracle. This one's wife opts for fussy, overcomplicated methods while telling people to keep it simple, and cares more about clapping over her handiwork at sprinkling accessories, dried petal flowers, which run around $20 for 4 ounces, over her food. Throughout the series, this one's wife is obsessed with the idea of crafting moments. She has dreamt out exactly how she wants her guests to live, ordering around, in effect, sense of entitlement, and move in her world. Remember, we're all just living in her world, her fantasy. She goes to prep snacks. Popcorn she makes from dried corn she places in a paper bag and microwaves, which is a genuinely fun trick. Although it has been spotted, I would point out that there appeared to be a pre-packaged popcorn wrapper on the countertop. She makes homemade coffee creamer that she almost scalds, and a cameraman is forced to bring her attention to so it doesn't boil over. It's a lovely sentiment to find little things friends love and spoil them, but it feels so desperate and over the top. There is a way to entertain effortlessly while adding lots of personal touches that show you care about your guest, but this one's wife seems so fixated on this idea of magic moments that I can't believe she nor her guests will ever feel relaxed enough for any of this forced whimsy to play out as she's crafted in her mind. This, of course, is demonstrative of the fact that it's just not natural because she has no emotional empathy. Can you imagine not soaking in a bath after your host blathered on and on about how she mixed you a custom bath salt, complete with bath tea bag of flower petal, if you didn't feel like it? There is a moment when this one's wife guest is teaching her to make dumplings. This one's wife's guests often do the actual work while she faffs about in the kitchen, telling stories of her legendary hostessing skills, demonstrative of her sense of entitlement, her lack of accountability because she's lazy, and her grandiosity in showing off. This one's wife is stopped in her tracks as her friend says to mix a slurry. "A slurry? I've never heard this word," she exclaims. She breaks into a bit of a refrain about a slurry. It's such a novel word. Really? A slurry? What home cook has never made a cornstarch water mixture to thicken something, or at the very least heard of it? And this is, again, demonstrative of this one's wife. She thinks she's educated. She's not. She's not heard about slurry. And moreover, as a cook, she ought to have done. But she hasn't, because she's not really a cook. There are many other awkward, cringy bits, like when Mindy Kaling refers to this one's wife by her maiden name, and this one's wife rushes to scold her. "It's not Markle, I'm Sussex now," in a tone she attempts to play off as giggly, though she's obviously very sensitive about it. Masks slip, threat to control, enough so to scold her so-called friend out over it. She explains she's making this new life where she can be herself and shares this special last name with her children. Though surely this one's wife knows her children's legal last names are not in fact Sussex, but Mountbatten Windsor. Sussex is merely her styling, a name gifted by the institution she is throwing a party for herself in the last episode to celebrate escaping from. Through it all, there is the clapping. Yes, the seal clapping. This one's wife is constantly clapping, with her hands lifted high in front of her face, fingers perfectly straight and flat. Greeting a friend who has just come over, clap. Taking a drink order, clap. Tasting a bite of food, clap and a wiggle. If you ever made a drinking game centered around every time this one's wife claps, you'd end each episode on the floor. While the show is shot beautifully and there was clearly a fantastic production team with an incredible camera crew and amazing style, the show really needed a director who wasn't the host. This one's wife jumps from story to story in an utterly confusing way. In one moment, she's making donuts and says she will bake them since she's never made donuts, and baking sounds easier than frying. Not even 40 seconds later, she says she used to work at a shop that made mini donuts, and she used to make them when she worked there. This, of course, is the compartmentalization of the narcissist and demonstrates that she's telling a lie. She often talks of being proud of the life she's built and the home she's curated, but never shows any of it. Contradiction. Opting for a set instead of filming her own home. She hosts a sort of launch party for her new persona, This One's Wife Sussex, a title for a job she didn't want to keep. Contradictory nature of the narcissist. As far as the show goes, if you don't take it too seriously, it isn't horrible to watch. This One's Wife's style is whimsical and fun, and she shows some pretty decent-looking food, pasta aside. Her tips for styling flowers are generally useful. If you have nothing but piles of money to spend, all day to prance around and no access to Pinterest yourself, you'll find a ton of inspiration. So another review, another hammering of it, and of course, what is writ large throughout, This One's Wife's narcissism, because it permeates everything that she does in increasingly obvious ways. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.